Fighting is ongoing on the southeastern outskirts of Kostiantynivka. Here, in fact, the enemy is constantly launching assaults, moving its reserves toward both Praitecheno and Kostiantynivka. But we can see the settlement, and here's the direction of the enemy's movement clearly indicated. With the forces of the enemy's 3rd Army Corps, they are trying to enter the outskirts of Kostiantynivka through the Dachi area from the direction of Oleksandr Shultin. They are pushing toward the railway station, particularly along Ostrovsky Street. To the west, the enemy is assaulting in the area of Sofiivka. Once again, the comprehensive strategic objective of the enemy forces, which we have previously discussed, is to effectively surround and encircle Kostiantynivka from the northwest and advance toward Drushkivka. Simultaneously, from the east and the north, they are attacking in the area of Chasiv Yar and further north. Their goal is to reach the line of Maiskeverolubivka and direct their primary efforts toward Drushkivka. The enemy has amassed a remarkably large concentration of military forces in this specific sector. However, let's say, the overall operational tempo has experienced a noticeable deceleration lately. The enemy is clearly planning a regrouping and is bringing up reserves. The forces that the enemy is currently throwing into the assault on the city and its outskirts are clearly insufficient for them. Let's put it this way. The further fate of the enemy's advance toward Kramatorsk will depend on the capture, as we mentioned, of Kostiantynivka and, in fact, Drushkivka. Despite the intense pressure on Kostiantynivka from the south and east, the enemy still hasn't managed to enter the city. Assault groups are dying on the outskirts and in the Dasha sector. However, the Muscovites are already claiming that they are in the city and supposedly have reached the railway station. The occupiers' lies are being refuted from the press service of the 44th Mechanized Brigade 19th Army Corps, not from an office, but the streets of Kostiantynivka, from the railway station we mentioned. Watch further and draw your own conclusions.
We're entering the Kostiantynivka railway station. It's empty, but this is our station. You see, we can't really show off here, but that's just how it is right now. I don't see anything. No Russian troops.
The claim that Kostiantynivka is under the control of the Russian Federation is yet another fake. Kostiantynivka is Ukraine. Kostiantynivka is ours. You can sleep peacefully. The armed forces of Ukraine are fighting with all their heart.
Joining us for details on the Kostiantynivka area is the press officer of the 28th Mechanized Brigade, the Knights of the Winter Campaign, Evgenia Alkimova. Evgenia, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Zhenya, please tell me, in which part of the city are there the most storms now? Is this the southeast region, or is it, let's say, the deep south, or maybe a little further to the north?
The southeast, but I wouldn't say that there have been more assault actions. For the most part, the enemy is now focusing its efforts on wearing us down rather than on direct assaults. In other words, they understand that if they break through somewhere, they'll just get bogged down further on. So for the most part, they tend to operate with assault groups on the flanks, while on our side, the focus is more on gradually wearing them down downwards. That is, we are making their logistics movement and other similar things virtually impossible.
Do you think the enemy is short on personnel? Because overall, the pace they set has somewhat decreased on the enemy's side. What could be the reason? Is it perhaps the weather, like the inability to bring in heavy equipment for their offensive?
Yes, both a shortage of personnel and a shortage of equipment. They haven't used equipment for quite a while now. There were a couple of tanks a few months ago, but that was in our sector, and basically it didn't bring any results. And although these infiltration tactics give the enemy a short-term advantage, politically speaking, you could certainly say that when they engage in this flag raising, but in reality, it costs them a great deal in terms of their manpower, and in fact, it simply brings far too little in the way of actual results.
About infiltration tactics, tell me, Belka, has the enemy gained a foothold in those dashas everyone's talking about in the Kostiantynivka suburbs where they're continuing their assaults?
As far as I know, our units are there, so they have not succeeded. Currently, fortification, it's actually a very relative thing because the specific number of enemy personnel that can be stationed there is currently insufficient to continue any offensive actions or even just to properly accumulate forces. So if any enemy units are present there, they simply cannot carry out any active military operations because they are almost immediately destroyed by our drones.
Are our guys still able to slip into the city, considering that the enemy still maintains an advantage in the number of drones in the air at this time?
They are, but now they are only traveling on foot. All the approaches are currently controlled by vehicles. Even getting in with an armored vehicle now is almost impossible. It's like playing the lottery. However, moving on foot is safer. Plus, we have mobile fire teams covering all of these approaches. Consequently, navigating through the area and making it across safely requires a lot more time and effort, but nevertheless, this method consistently works every single time.
It's riskier. Zhenya, were any locals evacuated recently? Many people are still left in the city.
Yes, we evacuated a family from the Paraleli district. Civilian volunteers were taking them there. This is Denis Christov. And our brigade mobile fire groups were just providing them with fire support because they weren't taking them out. They were taking them out there. People were literally walking, and grandma was being carried in a wheelchair.
Thank you, Zhenya. Yevgeny Alkimov spoke about the situation in Kostiantynivka and the surrounding area in the zone of responsibility of the 28th Military District. Alexander, please tell me, in your opinion, will the enemy not reduce the pace of movement even though they are falling somewhat? Will they have, let's say, enough forces for such a large-scale operation to encircle a city like this with such major flanking attacks?
Look, let's start by looking at the map a bit. Let me clarify this for you. This road right here is in fact already considered part of the city of Kostiantynivka. That is, at least according to the official map. It might seem much farther away to the naked eye, but the actual urban development extends well beyond this highway and even comes significantly closer right here. Therefore, to suggest that the enemy is already inside the city is plausible, even from these observations. Positions, because there is already urban development there. Regarding what is currently happening on the front line, I specifically want to draw your attention to what both the experienced military officers from the Minkivka area and those from Kostiantynivka are currently reporting. The enemy forces are now very heavily focused on blocking the logistical routes of our units. This is being done for that purpose. It is being done in order to ensure the bringing up of reserves and regrouping. In other words, to provide a detailed response in order to effectively prevent our units from launching counterattacks against the Russians. They are actively blocking our logistical routes to stop us from regrouping and bringing up additional reserves. That is the full answer to your question regarding what is happening there at this very moment.